Hi, my name is Chantel Estes, and I am covering Chapter 7 of Change Wars, titled Preparing for the New Majority, How Schools Can Respond to Immigration and Demographic Change, written by Pedro A. Noguera. I'll take you through the chapter and connect it with Tina's problem of practice. I am hoping the solutions offered in this chapter can help guide her as she develops a schedule to meet the various needs of her alternative learners. Margaret may also be interested in another of Dr. Noguera's books, entitled Unfinished Business: Closing the Achievement Gap. It addresses how to transform the roles of parents in schools to create a demand for equity. Dr. Pedro Noguera is a professor in the Steinhardt School of Education and the director of the Metropolitan Center for Urban Education at New York University. He is an urban sociologist whose research focuses on the ways in which social and economic conditions in the urban environment influence schools. He holds a tenured faculty appointment at the Harvard Graduate School of Education and the University of California, Berkeley. He has published over 150 research articles, monographs, and research reports on topics ranging from urban school reform to the potential impact of vouchers on school choice in urban settings. Dr. Noguera has received multiple awards for his work and continues to advocate for the new majority. As an engineering teacher, I often use the design thinking process with students. It's a solutions-based approach to solving problems. I thought it would be a good strategy to deepen our thinking around understanding Chapter 7. This 5-step approach starts with empathy, in which you gain a deeper understanding of the problem being solved. Step 2 is define. In this step, you synthesize the information you gathered in the empathize stage to further define the core problem. Step 3 is where you start to ideate solutions to the problem. In this stage, there are no wrong answers. The important thing is to think outside the box in search of new solutions to the problem. Step 4 is to prototype. This is when you build or create a scaled-down version of the idea your design team chose in the previous stage. At the end of this stage, the team should have improved and re-examined their build to know some of the inherent problems and accessibility to their users. Step 5 is the testing stage. Designers test their prototype with the focus users. This is an iterative process where the designers take feedback from the tests and make improvements to redefine their solutions and continue to use empathy to improve their design. Sometimes only parts of the design thinking process are used. For our purposes, I will ask you to empathize with how immigration and demographic changes are influencing education, take time to ideate new solutions to this problem, and then prototype your solution to share during our discussion. To start the design thinking process, we will first empathize to understand immigration. Jose Antonio Vargas said it right when he said, "America is white and black and Latino and Asian. America is mixed. America is immigrants." Although America is a nation made up of immigrants, immigration has always been a source of a charged topic filled with controversy and conflict. Historically, each wave of immigrants has been met with hostility, discrimination, and opposition. When Irish immigrants came to America, they were vigorously opposed by the Yankee nativists that were already here. Over time, the Irish overcame their opposition. Not long after, the Irish became the biggest opposers to the Asian immigrants arriving in America. In fact, throughout history, there is evidence of opposition to immigration for each wave of immigrants arriving to the U.S. Currently, immigration is on the rise. Soraz Orozco, 2001. Since 1990, the United States has experienced the greatest influx of immigration in its history. Most immigrants are non-white, and their presence is transforming communities. In some places, immigrant labor is displacing American workers because they can be paid much less. Since 1965, the majority of new immigrants have been from Latin America and Asia. Although Asians and Latinos have lived in the U.S. for many years, it is not uncommon for their citizenship to be questioned. By the year 2050, whites will no longer be the majority of the U.S. population. Clark, 1998. Today, immigrants are settling all over the U.S., including small towns, suburbs, rural areas. Currently, an estimated 12 million undocumented workers live in the U.S. So, how does immigration affect American education? This chapter examines the factors that influence how schools are responding to the demographic changes brought about by immigration and the educational controversies that accompany them. American public schools find themselves in a controversial and politicized situation. Unlike any of the other nation's institutions, public schools do not have the right to deny undocumented immigrants access to services. The courts have repeatedly ruled to support the rights of these children. This often means that public schools are called to teach students who do not speak English. Public schools are looked at as a way to assimilate and integrate immigrant children arriving in the country. Schools are expected to teach English to undocumented immigrant children. Many schools do not feel equipped to meet the needs of this ever-growing population. Now that you know a little more about the problem that immigration poses to American education, start to brainstorm ideas to help solve the problem. Remember, there are no wrong answers. Try and think outside the box to imagine new ideas. Many approaches Dr. Pedro Noguera describe in this chapter for addressing the needs of immigrant students he claims are entirely unaddressed by the predominant theories of educational change in mainstream society. He calls them a growing body of theories in action that advocates narrowing the achievement gaps, examining achievement data, structured literacy strategies, and various combinations of pressure and support that take into account the dynamic nature of immigrant life. I am hoping Tina can use some of these theories in action to inform her decisions about how best to build a schedule that will meet the needs of her alternative learners. Although some of them may not be immigrants, I believe that these theories in action can help many students who find themselves struggling in their educational system. So, what can schools do to support these theories in action? Noguera suggests 3 ways to meet the needs of immigrant students. Number 1, provide support as students acculturate. Number 2, address the needs of transitional families. And number 3, community school approach. The first theory in action is to provide support as students acculturate. Many times immigrant youth find themselves stuck in between 2 worlds, neither fully American nor part of their own country of origin. Sometimes these students come to us without formal education or a strong sense of language, making it difficult for them to learn English or any academic content. Oftentimes, these circumstances attribute to higher tendencies for gang involvement, pregnancy, and a higher dropout rate. To help counter these effects, schools can provide student support through providing a variety of extracurricular activities that are of high interest to the students being served. They can also hire caring adults, some of whom are from the same backgrounds as the students that they serve. These adults will help to guide students by showing them possibilities to build social capital. A second theory in action is addressing the needs of transitional families. Many times, immigrant families are separated by thousands of miles and borders. Often families have to make tough choices on who will stay in the country of origin and who will move. It's important for those working with immigrant students and their families that they understand the strain that this puts on families and provide social and emotional support for these students. Since migrant workers travel between the U.S. and their country of origin, this often results in their children missing substantial amounts of time from school. One school in California changed their academic year in order to accommodate the needs of their migrant families. Instead of summer break, this school takes a break in December and January to reduce the academic time students miss. The third theory in action is the community school approach. Since the needs of immigrant students and their families encompass cognitive, social, emotional, physical, and moral development, schools lack the means and know-how to meet these diverse needs. Some schools are opting to partner with community organizations and nonprofits to meet the needs of the whole child. When the social, emotional, nutritional, and physical needs of low-income students are met, then it's easier to meet the primary developmental needs. In another of his books, Unfinished Business, Closing the Racial Achievement Gap, Dr. Nagaro explains how creating smaller communities within the larger school community can help close the achievement gap for students since it offers a more personalized approach to learning. He also recommends to involve marginalized parents by giving them deliberate and concise communication about how they can be involved, including explicit advice on how they can support their students' academic needs and future goals. Although the ideas in this book synthesize the results from a study on high school students, I believe some of their conclusions may be relevant to both Tina's and Margaret's problem of practice. Now that you have heard some ideas others have had to address the growing population of immigrants in our schools, it is your turn. Design or build a solution to help schools respond to the immigration and demographic change. Your prototype can be a drawing, a three-dimensional representation, or even an organizational structure that can help support and prepare schools for the new majority. Share your thinking in our discussion. Here are the references I used for this show.